Guys, excuse the couple minutes we are late, but we appreciate you tuning in. I hope you have a pen and paper for this one. We're going to talk headlines. We're going to talk ADP values. You're doing dynasty drafts right now and give you ideas for trades. And we're going to talk sleepers. You know, not your usual sleepers, the same ones you see. We got some pretty good ones, and I got a couple beasts, couple snipers with me as usual tonight. So guys, grab your popcorn, grab your beers. It's a party. It's a boogie. Let's go.
Go district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? We are back in the district. As I said, we have a big show tonight. I got my two snipers with me, my two boys. The overhyped sleeper, Dan with the flow. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing great. Beautiful day out here in Minnesota. So was sitting out on the deck and just enjoying the weather. And, you know, what else do you want out of life? Nice 75-degree day.
Living that baller life on the regular, Dan. We love it. We love the flow today. The stash is full effect. Mr. Theo Brock Lesnar, how are you, brother?
I'm doing great. I had a wonderful Memorial Day weekend, as I'm sure you guys did. I'm not sure I cut off Zach Wilson on the New Jersey Turnpike on the way home, but it might have been Zach Wilson I cut off. So, little travel update. So back in the GOAT District, and happy to be here.
Nice, yeah, man. Happy Memorial to everyone. You guys enjoyed that south of the border. We had the weekend prior was May 2-4 for us Canadians up here, and I know Andrew, you might be watching. Yes, my Leafs lost. I'm used to it. It's all good, man. You know, just give me more time to focus on what I love, which is fantasy. So, guys, another big show tonight. Before we get to it, if you're listening, you like winning, you like the show, you like fantasy football, you like trades, smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. You're just helping us out. We appreciate it. We appreciate you. Guys, a lot of sleeper articles popping out there. You see a lot of the same names. We're doing a lot of dynasty drafts, best ball drafts, is that right? Draft? Wow, that did not sound right for a second. It's like when you look at a word you haven't spelt in a while, and you're like, that looks kind of funny. But no, man, just a lot of information to digest, but a lot of value in a show like this because we're going to go through a lot of names. I know we started touching a bit before we hit the big red button. I'll go to you, Theo. I know you and Andrew put out some great shows, the Triflex. What's your general feel? Do you think are you finding there's a lot of value out there that people are making available to you in drafts? Are you finding it harder in certain formats versus others?
So I think that this time of year you can absolutely find value. I think the market kind of corrects itself when we get closer to the season, especially with the preseason. Where you might be able to get the same guy in multiple fifth rounds over and over and over again, and then come the end of August, he's in the early fourth. So you have to look for it, but there is value to be found on draft boards. There's always some changes. I think one of the misconceptions on ADP is that it's some continually changing thing. It changes, but it doesn't really change so much at the top. The top 24 guys, top 20 guys are going to be about the same as we move along. But you can find that real value in those guys that are going in the 5th, 6th round that might be a 4th rounder in 30 days, 45 days from now. So absolutely, you can find value this time of year.
Dan, before we hit the headlines, what are you feeling out there these days? Whether it's best ball, dinos, are you seeing value there? Or are you finding it a little harder?
No, I think there's always value out there. I mean, when any player goes up, some other player's going down. There's always players that are going down that should not be, or that maybe you think should be rising and aren't. So the value is always there. You just got to be always hunting around and trying to figure out where it is, because it's always changing. So, but yeah, I've been a little bit more focused on Dynasty than best ball, just because over the past month we've been going through a lot of our rookie drafts, and and rookie drafts are a great place not only to obviously draft rookies, right? But they're a great place to make a lot of other moves. Like one league that JD knows very well, the Super Goat League. Man, I was making moves left and right, and they were not all. Most of the time there was a draft pick changing hands, but a lot of times my goal wasn't that draft pick; it was some other player. And so it's a good time when everybody's paying attention, when your rookie draft is going on, that you can a lot of times get a lot of deals done.
Theo, you would have been proud. Dan was tap dancing through that thing in the first round. I was not a participant. My first pick was my first 2 were in the 3rd round, but I ended up making a trade, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, that was a fun trade or fun draft for sure. I think it's almost done. I just
we're getting down to the dregs now.
Yeah. Where I go to Theo in the back end DMs and I'm like, Theo, you like this guy or do you like this guy? Because you know what? You end up with, I find we talked about it last week. If you haven't checked it out, last week we had Addison Hayes, guys like Schwartz, Palmer. Like I just, you kind of get a few shares and then they're the guys you should take, but you're seeing these other guys that you rank lower that are available that you don't have any shares of. And that's kind of where I was coming to you with Theo. It's like, I know that this is the guy I should take, but anyways, check out that show. Check out the show prior for that rookie action. But Dan, I'll go to you first. I know you got a little excited in one of the DMs here with you want to toot your horn. So I don't know if I missed news on Barkley. I'm hoping not, because you and I made a move for him and I own him in another big league. But what's going on with Barkley right now, and how does it affect fantasy?
All right. Well, what's coming out now is all of a sudden the Giants are starting to slow play Saquon. And they're saying, we want to bring him along slow. There's noise that he could definitely start the season on a touch count. Possibly they might not even be active for a game or two. And it's all related back to the knee injury he suffered in September, which once the news came out back around early October, that they'd repaired not only the ACL, but he'd also had some damage to the MCL, and they also had a meniscus repair on it as well. And, that makes it a lot more than just a simple ACL, which we are starting to think of as, oh yeah, well, if they tear their ACL in September, they should be just fine for the following year. If they tear it in December, that's maybe another story. And, with the extra damage to that knee, that just to me said this is going to be a little bit longer of a rehab, a little bit more difficult to rehab. They're going to have to be a little bit more careful with him, because there's a lot of trauma that went on in that knee, both in the injury and also when they repair that meniscus and everything else. That's a lot of trauma for the knee, and we're talking about this is how he makes his living. So I figured that it was probably that he was going to be starting off the year pretty slow this year. I hope that he is back to normal. If you're a Saquon owner, you almost want to see him baby through the month of September, because you want him to be, thundering through your league in October, November, and December, and really picking up steam and helping you out. But if you've got Saquon, I would definitely be looking around for another running back that you can use during the month of September.
Theo, unfortunately for Barkley, the Giants bye week is until week 11. If my quick Google search is correct here. From what Dan said, and if you have anything to add news-wise, I mean, by all means, but give us an idea, and I'll go back to Dan on this. How does this change your approach on Barkley? Was he someone that you were buying, avoiding, in the middle, whatever it is? But how does that change now? And if you own him, what should you do? What do you think you do right now?
Well, I think anybody with open waivers in their dynasty leagues needs to be adding Devontae Booker immediately. Whether you have Saquon Barkley or not, he could be a source of a couple of cheap starts. It's troublesome considering that it's been a long recovery, and now we're starting to hear little kind of drumbeats that like Dan touched on, that he might not be ready. I mean, you think of Saquon as like a superhuman, like Adrian Peterson, like athlete. So for him to kind of be slow with his recovery is not a great sign to me. I mean, I think you still need to kind of start weighing when you're drafting, especially in redraft. When Saquon, you might have considered Saquon at 2 overall this year, 3 overall. You might get a little bit of a discount, but he's going to stay in the first round. Unless he's, if he's going to miss 2 games, he's still going to be a late first. So he might have some value as a late first round pick in redraft, but it's definitely problematic. And for Dynasty, one more injury, and then we could start talking about some real fall off here. I mean, he's only 24, so he's potentially has a lot of football left, but it's not a great sign to me.
Dan, I'll go back to you first before I give my thoughts. Like, how does this affect, you and Barkley right now, and whether it's on your rosters or not on your rosters, or what's your kind of input on how to handle the situation?
Well, for the most part, I have almost no Saquon on my rosters, just because to me, the utility that you could get from him was always outweighed by his cost. To me, he was always a very, very expensive asset. There was a lot of, we'll use one of Nate Pilmer's favorite words, upside, factored in with Barkley. And, I understand why too. But, I mean, basically, Barkley's price has almost always been that you need to get, like 85% plus of what his maximum capacity is, fantasy point wise. Which is it's a tougher ask than I think we give credit for a lot of times, and that just makes it so that, for me, Barkley, honestly, right now, if I was in a redraft league, I'd be looking to take him around the 2-3 turn, and I just know he's never going to fall there. Dynasty wise, definitely it makes me want to push pause. If I was doing a startup, I think I would be,
avoiding.
I would have a hard time taking Barkley over Antonio Gibson even.
Well, especially like he's where he's going around. You know what I mean? Like
right? Yeah, I mean Barkley is basically what, RB2, RB3, RB4, somewhere in there in startups.
Yeah. I
mean, yeah, you
can't. So how far back do you think this pushes him, guys? Like, let's say that this is the worst of it, and maybe he's a month.
I'm putting him back at like RB10 or so. I mean, I think you can make a case for McCaffrey, Taylor, Cook, Kamara, probably Akers, probably Swift,
Henry,
Derrick Henry, maybe Antonio Gibson for sure, Najee Harris maybe. I mean, to me, he's somewhere in that Derrick Henry, Najee Harris range, maybe even Nick Chubb, kind of around in there. So definitely a back end RB1 for me.
So if you're going into the season, you've got Barkley as one of your top 2 studs, obviously. Usually how I approach a situation like this, if I own the player, is you start off by getting feelers out to, what you look at pivots. Mm-hmm. I'm not going out to just sell for anything, because right. I think at worst, you get more information as the offseason goes, And a lot of guys, let's face it, a lot of this health and look, we're going to get a couple people on the show. We've had some awesome people on the show just to give us some good, some PTs and just health kind of information on these guys. Cause let's face it, we're not doctors, right? We're getting all this from the news. Now I like to A, not rush it, but B, as you get closer to the season, if you still haven't moved them, my backup is always you go to those bottom teams, those teams that are not competing. That's kind of your backup. If you haven't been able to move Barkley by then, and the news is, you know what, he's not going to be starting the season. He might be off for a bit. You always have the backup of going to those bottom feeding teams and saying, hey man, you want a stud RB that'll be, ready for you when next year or whatever it is, and then try your pivot move there and get yourself a package. I mean, it might not be ideal and maybe you're a bit more desperate at that time. But just to give some ideas, on how to plan between now and the start of the season if you do hold Barkley.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think if you're going to sell him right now is not the time because of the Roto-World effect or the NBC Sports Edge effect. He's been front and center in some of their blurbs recently. And so he's on everybody's mind that, oh yeah, Barkley's hurt. Maybe I don't want him, or maybe I want to pay less for him. They'll be trolling for a discount. I would, if I was going to be moving him, I'd be looking to move him in like July before training camp start. But after the OTAs have all wrapped up, where there's just basically not a whole lot of news going on and people kind of forget. And the people who are really kind of, out of it, not really doing much in their dynasty leagues are starting to maybe wake up a little bit, and think about the season. That to me would be the time to move him if you need to.
Yeah, they just see the name, right? And they're like, yeah, you can get Barkley.
Yeah,
so Dan, yeah. Anyways, don't be too pissed at me for Barkley.
I mean, honestly, when you floated that trade by me, the first thing I thought about was, man, that knee. But on the other hand, it was, I like the structure of the deal, and with Barkley, I'm still holding out some hope that he's going to be, good to go by, like mid-October at least, something like that. And, the Giants are going to be careful with him for a reason because they do want him down the stretch run, and, they do want to be able to use him fully. So I'm hoping that's what they do. I would almost prefer that they hold him out a couple, 3 games rather than, putting us in that no man's land of you start the guy and he gets, like 5 carries and 3 targets or something like that. And you're just like, and what do I do with this every week? So that's my hope, is that he's either in or he's out.
Shout out to Andrew Schellenberg, my partner for our Triflexing team, where we took Saquon Barkley at the 110 in our startup, but we added Devontae Booker in the 20th round. So we're good for a couple of weeks here. We really need to get him going, but we'll survive, Andrew. Don't worry.
This is when you wish Gallman was still there, man, because he showed he could do it.
I was
Booker,
trying to.
I don't dislike Booker though. I mean, they went out and they got Booker. Booker had a couple of nice big runs with Vegas. Booker's interesting. They let Gallman go, and Gallman didn't get huge money. They could have kept Gallman, but they seem to like Booker in New York, and I think he could be useful for a couple of weeks. He really could. I mean, he really shit the bed when there was. We all had the potential Booker smash week when one of the weeks Jake was out, and he kind of left everybody with a kind of a sour taste in their mouth, like a Mike Boone situation, where you wait all the time for this guy to finally get his chance, and then he lets everybody down. So I think the community kind of still down on Booker, but Booker flashed a little bit. He had a lot of big bursty runs, and I think that that offense should be a little bit better. They added Galladay, and the offensive line should be a little bit better this year. So I don't dislike Booker. I think he's a viable guy to grab super late right now in football guys draft. And again, I'd be rostering him on your dynasty rosters, especially if you cut downs. You can always just get rid of him. He costs nothing. So I'm a little bit bullish on him.
No, I was gonna say I was looking on our buddy Fantasy Mojo ADP. He's not even on there. Like he's not even getting drafted in Dynasty right now. So you can either grab him off waivers if your waivers are running soon. If you're on a different league, but FFPC, if you don't get him in the draft, you got to wait till September or August, and then by then, if the hype does build in that direction, he's probably going to be kind of that big money guy that goes the first week. So if you can get him now in the draft, like Theo was saying, in the last round, even, look, from what you guys are saying, it looks like that news is going to catch like fire, and he might be moving up into these drafts, in those last couple rounds. But we'll see as the off season goes. Theo, I accidentally, anything to add, guys, on Barkley? I think we kind of covered it pretty good with the information we have at this point.
Yeah, I think
we're good.
All right, so I had it on the screen, Theo. I'll let you get in there on Julio and his situation. He's obviously in the news right now, and every day you see a different team that's got. You even seen those fake accounts that I got faked out by him going to Seattle.
Yeah, it's been pretty much the talk of Twitter is Julio Jones trade. He had the live interview with Shannon Sharp, whether that was staged or not. I think Shannon Sharp kind of got him in a moment. He was relaxed. People might think no way, but whatever you think with that situation, it's certainly been one of the biggest storylines in the offseason for the last couple of weeks is, will Julio get moved? I think Atlanta wants a first-round pick. Julio is 32 years old. He's certainly still a great player. He can help pretty much any NFL team. But right now, up on the board, these are the odds as of a few days ago on DraftKings. So as you can see, the New England Patriots right now are favorites to get him at plus 450, 4.5 to 1. The Rams are at plus 500. The Titans are at plus 500. And then staying with Falcons is plus 600. So, it looks like tomorrow could be the day. He had to get moved after June 1st. So in NFL terms, that doesn't mean June 1st. That means any day after June 1st. So tomorrow, I think we could actually see a Julio Jones trade go down. And it's interesting to kind of look at the scenarios here. The Titans made a hell of a lot of sense. They didn't really add anybody in the draft. They added 2 draft picks, but the highest one was a 4th-round pick, Des Fitzpatrick, who nobody was too excited about, but they added him. They signed Josh Reynolds in the offseason. Again, a guy we don't dislike, but certainly nobody's scary. And they had 60% of their targets vacated from last season. That's 18.7 targets per game. So a lot of us looking for the A.J. Brown, massive breakout season, that can still happen. A.J. can still get his 140, 150 targets, and a wide receiver 2 will still have plenty of work there. So I like the potential for him on the Titans. The Rams are an interesting one. It sort of brings the values of Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp down slightly, but it makes the value of Matt Stafford go up a lot. That would be a very interesting offense. And then of the other favorites, the Patriots, he would be the offensive focal point. He would be the primary guy on the offense. There's no wide receiver there that scares you. It's the Nelson Aguilar is probably their number 1 targeted wide receiver this year, and their big money free agent. They have the 2 tight ends in Smith and Henry. But Julio would have a chance for a major role in an offense that none of us are excited about, but he could certainly step in and be very well targeted. So very, very interested to see. I'm actually interested to see what JD and Dan have to say. For me, I think Tennessee would be the most interesting landing spot. I'm not sure if I'm rooting for anybody particularly, but I'd be interested to see what you guys have to say about this situation.
Dan, let it flow.
I don't have any strong lean on it. I guess probably the teams that make the most sense to me are the Patriots, the Chargers, and the Titans. I don't know where the Rams really, have I don't know where they come up with the money. I haven't looked very closely. Maybe they can do it, but I mean, they've been hard up against the cap. And so given what they already have at receiver, I'm not sure if this is a move that really makes a lot of sense for the Rams, but yeah, the Patriots, obviously, the cupboard was bare last year. They've done, they've worked on restocking it some. I mean, nobody's doing handsprings over Nelson Aguilar or anything. Don't get me wrong, but he's definitely better than what they had going last year. The Titans have an obvious need. The Chargers, I think, have a pretty solid need. I mean, they're a little light at tight end, right? That's pretty much what Julio is. So I'm kidding. Julio's still great. If you own him, you should still try to get a low first. But that's where I'm at. What do you think, JD?
Yeah, I think that ship sailed with the low first. I think you got to wait till the season starts, or until he gets traded and the hype builds. But I don't know. I don't know that he gets traded, guys. Like I started telling Theo, and then we realized that it was time to get on here. But I feel like with him and the guy we're going to talk about next, it's almost like a surprise to their franchise, to their team. So like you think about Atlanta going into the draft, and I mean, they could have gotten themselves their next, generational or whatever starting quarterback, at least for the next little bit. If they knew that Julio was not, unhappy, that he was unhappy, you would think they would have planned otherwise. I mean, to bring a tight end in with that early pick, you think that, okay, they've got Julio, they've got Ridley, they've got Ryan coming back. He's, not the best defense, but fantasy-wise, you love that situation. But now, if Julio does leave this franchise, I mean, where are they left? Like, is Russell Gage really your wide receiver too? And okay, as much as Pitts is everyone's savior, and like, what is he really going to do in the first 4 to 6 weeks of the season? So I don't know. I kind of feel like either Atlanta's in a really bad spot and this is like a surprise on them. I think it was, trying to remember who was talking about that today that I was listening. It was either Mike Lombardi or it was Podfather, I think it was, that was talking about something like that. But I don't know. I feel like that might be, it makes sense to me that Atlanta maybe didn't know that Julio's like, okay, they're thinking Julio's coming back. We've got like our serious weapons. Now we've got even more weapons with Pitts. I don't know. What do you guys feel about that situation before we get into like the fantasy side of it? Do you think that this is like this was sprung on the Falcons, or I don't know. Do you think they still take?
I don't know if it was sprung on them. I mean, I think they knew he was a little bit disgruntled. I just don't know that they thought it was going this far.
Okay.
I mean, and maybe this is what the community's been getting so much steam behind Pitts. Maybe this is what really pushes Pitts to justify some of these ADPs we're seeing. Maybe they do feel like he can be a 125 target guy right off the top. So certainly he would be a huge winner if Julio was moved in terms of targets. This certainly would hurt Matt Ryan, where we had the vision of Matt Ryan having 3 big-time weapons. And, Matt Ryan's going, quarterback 13-ish on like underdog drafts, where he's very appealing for late QB guys. But, for me, maybe this is the jolt for Kyle Pitts, and this is just kind of continues that rocket ship ADP we've seen, and might propel him into the early 3rd, late 2nd in some of these football guys drafts, which is just crazy. But
yes,
the volume could be there. The volume could absolutely be there. I mean, out of necessity if they move Julio.
I'm kind of. Sorry, go ahead, Dan. I was just gonna say I'm kind of bitter because Dan, I was telling you like Ryan was kind of he's a guy I thought was a nice sleeper actually going in this season for a contender, because everybody so he's old. If he's got like those weapons now, I don't know, Dan. How do you feel about it?
I mean, Ryan's still a good quarterback. I think Julio definitely made him better, but I think he's going to be just fine. And honestly, if you want a sneaky low buy, go out and get you some Hayden Hurst. I mean, he's going to by necessity be involved in this offense and involved as a pass catcher. So
I think either way, Dan, he's a value buy right now because Pitt's just
right. Everybody's thinking about Pitts. I mean, he's got the biggest Pitts smokescreen in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen him going in the 18th round of these football guys.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I'll say that I actually one of the sharper players around. I'm not going to ruin his draft strategy, but I saw him the other day, a guy we all know.
Theo, you can tell him my strategy. It's okay, man.
Not just in this sense, but I saw he went naked at tight end until Hayden Hurst, and he loaded on running backs, and he went with Hayden Hurst. I thought it was an interesting build, not a build I would do, but last year at this time, people were very excited about Hayden Hurst, and I think the community potentially was a year early, like Dan said. If no matter how many targets you're projecting for Ridley and Pitts, and then you'll have your Russell Gage and your Zacchaeus getting a few targets. The Falcons are going to pass a lot this year. So Hurst would become a very sneaky value, like Dan said. I think that's a great call by Dan.
Yeah, and it's not like Hurst was terrible last year either. I mean, he definitely had quite a few serviceable weeks.
Yeah, he did. And they traded multiple draft picks to him. It was a second rounder, I believe, and also a fourth to get him from Baltimore. So he was a high draft capital guy. And, again, people were very high on him. He was like that, Higbee, Gesicki, and Hurst, all those kind of guys going in the kind of that range last year. So it would be interesting to see if he had a nice year, a year after everybody's kind of given up on him.
Now, if you own Ridley, you're pretty happy if he does leave, because if you look at the game splits on our friends over at RotoViz, you're looking at almost a 5-point difference between in and out, Julio being in and out for Ridley. You're looking at almost 16 fantasy points versus over 20 on average in PPR. You're looking at over 30, about 40 yards average difference. So for Ridley, obviously, he becomes the center of the offense, I guess you could say, with no one else really at receiver. And then you hope Pitts and Davis can fill in the void and, give different layers to that offense. But, I mean, Ridley owners got to be happy on this. Now, let's say the hype on Ridley, with Julio moving or being moved, or even if it's just rumors, if you own Ridley, the hype gets out of hand. He's moving like a top 3 receiver. Are you guys holding him, or are you guys moving him at that point and trying to profit off the news, as they say in the crypto world?
I am definitely going to be holding on to Ridley. I've got him in a couple places, and I just like his future. I've got him. I put this. Well, first off, let me run back to Hurst real quick. What's up on the screen? This is Hayden Hurst last year in a tight end premium. He's got 9 weeks as a tight end 1. It's not, like I say, it's not like he was terrible last year. He was actually pretty darn good. It's just that he was flying under the radar. Nobody was really noticing because he didn't have, that 30-point explosion or whatever. As far as Ridley goes, there you go. There's my tweet from December 4th of 2020. I had Ridley as my number 5 dynasty asset.
Nice.
So that's how I feel about Ridley.
Yeah, I mean, it would be very hard for me to move Ridley. He's guaranteed to have 140 plus targets next year, and I think if Julio moves on, he's going to get the Stephon Diggs Diggs was at 166 last year, so I think it's hard to when you get to these crazy high target total projections. But Ridley legitimately could be a 160, 170 target guy. He's an ascending talent, and he showed last year, a lot of what he could do. So it would be very hard to move Ridley, like Dan said. I mean, if somebody gives you an unbelievable offer involving, a couple of young wide receivers or a couple of first-round picks, you can listen. But he's a multiple first-rounder type guy. plus. So it would be hard for me to move him.
Yeah, for sure. I just acquired him in one league where I owned him a couple of years ago, and I traded him off for Kareem Hunt just weeks before Hunt went busto with the Chiefs. And so I've been making that owner offers for Ridley for the past like 2.5 years, and I finally got one to go through. So I was super happy about that. He came home.
All right, guys, we're going to quarterback real quick before we get into tonight's main topics. Aaron Rodgers, obviously in the headlines a lot. You know, pictures of him in his bathing suit and his 12-year-old girlfriend, and their friends and whatever, you know, parental what do you call that? Chaperones.
Yes.
Are around, but I mean, from what it sounds, and this is kind of what I was talking about with Julio. I mean, I feel like, and you know, Aaron recently just came out and talked about it and said, you know, I love the team, I love the players, I love the coaches, I love Jordan Love. You know, he's like loving everything. And then he talked about like culture, and culture and philosophy differences is basically how he quoted it. And I mean, you know, listening to, it was Michael Lombardi actually I was listening to today, and you know, there's kind of seems to be this maybe misalignment with who Rodgers is blaming, you know, versus who's actually at fault. So, and you see it now when you look at the headlines. I mean, it doesn't look like Green Bay's like really planning on trading Aaron Rodgers. Would it make any sense, to trade the MVP of the league at the hardest position to replace, even if you did draft a quarterback last year? Or do they try to make this better? I feel, Dan, that I feel like this does, we're talking how many years? 16 years in Green Bay. You know, a team with heritage and, you know, all that kind of stuff. You would think that they make it better with Aaron Rodgers and try to make it work. No? Or do you think he's just not playing? You're shaking your head. So
yeah, let's not play around with all these. It's about culture and everything else. No, it's not about culture. It's about money. Come on. We know Aaron Rodgers. We know Aaron Rodgers is very focused on his status within the team, within the NFL, amongst other quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers is currently the 6th highest paid quarterback in the NFL. His contract is starting to wind down, and he doesn't like it. And so he's pouting like a little kid, like he often does. Sorry, I'm a Vikings fan, so that's just what I'm going to say. And, you know, and he knows in 2022, he's got, you know, basically a $40 million cap number, and the dead cap cost to cut him is $17 million. You know, so he knows the Packers can walk away unless they change that contract. He does not want to be cut loose by the Packers. He wants to be the one in control of that narrative. That's absolutely his type of personality. And so he wants a contract where he gets put back in control of the narrative instead of the Packers being in control of it. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
And where do you think that leads him? Like, if someone's, you know, fantasy wise, how do you?
I think he's likely to sit out some games. I think eventually the Packers are going to cave, and they're going to give him some kind of a deal which boosts him up and at least gives the illusion of being more highly paid, or gives him a couple extra years, something along those lines. They're gonna find a way to meet his demands, because I mean, you look at the Packers team, it's built to win now. It's not built to win in 2 or 3 years. It's built to win now, and that's with Aaron Rodgers at the helm. If Aaron Rodgers is not at the helm, their entire team build falls apart. So I think something's going to happen. Something's going to get done. You might have to sit through a week or two of the season to see it happen, but I don't think so.
So I bought him a couple months ago, I guess now, a month and a half-ish in Superflex, just feeling that he's got to be a value. Theo, is he, with this type of news right now, you know, more uncertainty, because now the Packers are going to be stubborn with regards to trading him? Is this all a play for a contract, like Dan is saying? Where are you if you have anything to add on the Aaron Rodgers NFL situation, but fantasy wise, how are you approaching this with the quarterback, the MVP, man? Let's face it, it's not like he's a chump. You know what I mean?
So I think that there's I think Dan said a lot of great things. And the guy's a prima donna. He loves being the center of attention. And it's, to me, I don't think he'll miss any games. I think they'll work this thing out right before the season. He'll probably miss some of the preseason, and I think that they'll make up, and it'll be a big story. And if you got Rodgers in redraft as like quarterback 11, you got a little bit of a value. But for me, I think there's a lot of smoke there. They're not going to go in with Jordan Love as the quarterback when they extended Aaron Jones. They have Devontae Adams in his prime. The defense should be pretty good. They have a team, like Dan said, that's ready to win now. So there certainly didn't show any signs of a team that was rebuilding. So I think this thing will work out, and I think that it'll be, Aaron Rodgers back in Green Bay this year, and I think you'll see him have another, successful season as their starting quarterback. What happens after this year? I would like to think he's going to be a Packer again, but that's probably the smart bet. But for this year, he's going to be a Packer.
So he's going quarterback 14. Are you comfortable taking him there? Like, let's do a quick OTC here. Rodgers or Stafford, Theo?
I'm probably still going to go Aaron Rodgers. I like to think that I can cover up at quarterback. If I've waited that late to get my quarterback, then I'm already taking a slight risk at QB. So yeah, I'm fine taking Rodgers. I think he's got big weeks on the horizon, like we saw last year. And if I'm getting him at quarterback 14, I feel like that's a value it's a risk I'm willing to take.
Darren. I'm looking at a list here and I'm seeing names. I know I have a feeling I know where you're going, Dan, but Rodgers or Watson?
In a dynasty startup, I might actually go Watson. But if I'm looking to win this year, obviously it's got to be Rodgers, not Watson. I don't know how much, if any, of this year Watson is going to play. I think Rodgers is a much safer bet to play this year. But long term, Watson is going to be a star quarterback in this league still. And if you can get him at any sort of a discount, I would do it. So the fact that he's even down here in the quarterback 11, 12, 13, 14 range with Aaron Rodgers right now that's such a huge buy for Watson already.
Yeah, for sure. It's getting tricky, right? The quarterback, a couple big names there with Rodgers and Watson when you think about coming into the offseason, and now we're sitting with two pretty big names, especially in your super flex leagues.
Yeah, and what's wild too is in the super flex, you see all those first round quarterbacks going off the board, right? 7 or 8 of them roughly, and then you get a couple 3 more in the second round, and then it's like you can probably go most of the third round before you start seeing the next wave of quarterbacks, and that's going to be Watson, Rodgers, Lance, quarterbacks that we feel very good about their talent, but we don't feel very good about them playing this year.
All right, guys, before we get into tonight's topics, if you're listening right now, smash the like, smash the subscribe. We appreciate it very much. You see it on the screen, guys. FFPC, Dynasty League startups starting at $77. Standard, best ball, and super flex. Best balls, guys. Slow, live. $35 to $12.50. And they have this money best ball tournament. $125 entry, $550,000 prize pool, 100 Genos. For first place, guys, for fantasy, for best ball too. Like, come on, man. It's no brainer. And then you've got the big leagues, the Football Guys Players Championship. This is what brought me to the FFPC. 500 grand, $500,000 early bird promo right now. If you sign up before before June 30th, and then draft before July 15th, you get a $35 credit, which, as you guys know, you can use towards best ball, dynasty, redraft. And then the big one, $500,000, almost $4 million. Early birds are on before May 31st, so that's actually passed. I apologize. But guys, go sign up, man. First team, save $100 off your first team, save $400 off each additional team. Is that the early bird, guys?
Yeah, that's the early bird.
So that's done.
Yeah.
All right. Apologize to Alex. We'll take that out of our little slide deck. But guys, again, $500,000. The main event on the FFPC, whether you do it live in Vegas or you do it online. I mean, guys, you guys play in this tournament. Anything to add?
No, it's awesome.
I mean, yeah, it's fantastic, and especially if you go to Vegas live for the drafts. I mean, there's just nothing better. Sitting down with 11 other people at the table, and you get to look everybody in the eye and just draft away.
Yeah, I'm gonna be in Vegas, as will Dan, and I'm in back-to-back mains, 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. On the 11th. I can't wait. I think it's gonna be amazing.
All right, stop bragging, man. Stop bragging. I can't even travel right now, so.
Yeah, that's pretty tough.
All right, guys. This is what you came here for. Grab your pen and paper. We talked about it, guys. It's whether you're doing best balls, dynasties, redraft, we're finding value. We're going to, the nucleus of the convo is going to be around Dino, but we'll add a sprinkle here and there about best ball, redraft, and where these guys fit. Like we said, we each have a few names that we want to drop in the conversation. I'll go to you first, Theo. Whether it's dynasty, best ball, give us a value. Unless you guys have a way, do you guys want to do this by position, or you just want to kind of throw names around?
Yeah, let's throw names around.
All right, I like it. Theo, throw the first one on the table.
So for me, it's a name for Dynasty, but I think he's also a value in redraft right now. Is Kareem Hunt. I think last year at this time there was a lot of buzz with Hunt, and he was running back 10 overall in 2020. Now you can get him in the 6th round of startups. It's a great situation for him in Cleveland, despite the fact that Nick Chubb is there. The offensive line there is phenomenal. It was the number 1 ranked run blocking and pass blocking offensive line in football per PFF. That was the first time that ever happened. And that was despite breaking in 3 new starters on the O-line. And also it was the first year with Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland. They're going to get Kareem Hunt touches. And I think one of the very intriguing things about Hunt is the fact that Nick Chubb will be a free agent next offseason. There's not the big extension for Nick Chubb yet. I think some people think it's going to happen, but I think there's a chance that heading into next offseason, Kareem Hunt might be going higher despite being a 26-year-old next year. I think there's a chance that Nick Chubb walks and he does not get the contract that he's looking for. But even if Nick Chubb is there, I think Kareem Hunt is a great value. I mean, he had half a season in 2019 coming off suspension where he was extremely productive, plus his full season last year. So he's been good since he got to Cleveland, and I don't see any reason why that should stop.
Yeah, so Dan, he gave you 20% of the time RB1 numbers, and then almost 40% as an RB2. So that's pretty good, man, for a guy who's not even the starter on his team, giving you 60% of the weeks, and you see some of those numbers. How do you feel on Kareem Hunt, where he's going? Is he value? Is he someone you're looking for in fantasy right now?
Yeah, I think he's, he can be a decent value. He's one of those guys I think kind of varies by league. whoever owns him, if his biggest fan is also his owner, then he's not going to come at value for you. But he's definitely somebody I'd be inquiring about, because I want to find out, does the biggest fan in this league own him, or am I a bigger fan and maybe I should own him?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going for any part of that offense, it's probably obviously the running backs. I mean, I'm kind of an ageist and a snob when it comes to running back, especially in Dynasty. I like Hunt in best ball. I like Hunt, as a depth piece. I do feel like he is going a little. Trying to look up. Do you know where he's going right now, Theo? ADP wise.
So he's going in the sixth round of startup dynasty drafts per Fantasy Mojo, and that was from all the May dynasty startups. So that was from the $2,500 level down to the $77 level. He's right about in the sixth round.
Okay. See, so here's my thing with Hunt, and if you're looking down the line, kind of what happens when if Chubb leaves. My issue is you've got guys like Carson, Gaskin, who are all starting on their rosters, even Chase Edmonds a bit farther down. I mean, Edmonds, maybe, depending on how you feel about him. I feel like he's going to get more of that offense maybe than Hunt might in Cleveland. You guys might disagree, or maybe it is about the same. But I don't know. I feel like Gaskin and Carson, maybe for me, are two guys that I prefer just because of who they're fighting for, for touches in that offense.
Well, yeah, I think Carson absolutely has to go before Hunt, at least in my book. I think the other guys are a little bit more, I think there might still be a shoe to drop in Miami. I could be totally wrong about that, but I don't know if Miami's starting running back is on their team right now.
I would take, if somebody offered me Kareem Hunt for my Myles Gaskin share, I think I would take that trade straight up. I think I would go Hunt over Gaskin. But there's also, you see some of these, like you said, the Chase Edmonds, even like the Michael Carters of the world, guys like that are starting to creep into that Hunt range, which I think is a little ridiculous. Carson's a different level of offense, different level of player. He's shown it. But some of these other guys, once you get to that back end RB2, high RB3 guys in Dynasty Startup right now, there's just so many question marks, and I think Hunt is one of the least questionable guys there. So to me, I think maybe I'm a little more bullish on him than you guys are. But I do think he's a value, especially with the question marks with the Chubb situation down the line. I mean, they clearly love him in Cleveland, and they went out and got him when he was kind of damaged goods, and he certainly rewarded them. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, no, I think he's going about where his value is. That's kind of how I feel about him. But yeah, I mean, then you see guys like James Robinson there.
Yeah, I think that might have been old. Yeah, I think with Robinson, I think that'll keep correcting itself as the summer goes along. Yeah.
I just pulled up some ADP on the Triflex from Rotoviz Dynasty after the draft. So it started May 1st.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. And where is he?
And he is running back 25 there. It comes right after Chris Carson, right before Myles Gaskin, Michael Carter, James Robinson, and so forth.
So it's similar. It's similar to the Dynasty one. Yep.
Yeah, and I think I think you're right, JD. I think he's pretty fairly valued there, but again, as Theo was saying, there is some upside in future years that I don't know that this ADP really is accommodating for. It's not guaranteed, but there's certainly the possibility of Kareem Hunt being a nice jump in ADP by this time next year.
The other thing, just to kind of finish or add, is opportunity costs. If I look at the receivers going in that range, I'm usually grabbing an Ayuk, Keenan Allen, T. Higgins, Allen Robinson, Mike Evans in that range. And I'm usually bypassing these guys because I've usually either already have a stud up top, and then I'm going to, kind of hodl some receivers. Because again, like I said, to me, between Hunt and guys like AJ Dillon, who to me has more upside, especially with the age factor, I don't know. I just, I'm looking even like the Pollards, the Jones. Yeah, look, Pollard maybe not as involved right now, but who knows? Maybe that evens out a bit this year with Zeke getting a little older and Pollard looking a lot more efficient than Zeke last year.
Yeah, I mean, Pollard's definitely an interesting one. He's almost running back 2 level in these startups. I'm with you. I'm very bullish on him, but it's still, we're taking a leap in faith in the coaching staff utilizing him more, or we're kind of betting on the Zeke regression. So there's two things need to happen in order for him to kind of pay off.
It's riskier floor, maybe higher ceiling.
I would go. I think that's fair.
Okay. That's a. I mean, Hunt's a good one. I know our boy Eric the Shiva is a big fan of Kareem Hunt. I think we're all fans of Kareem Hunt. When you're building rosters, there's a place for him. It's not like someone that you're avoiding. But no, that's a great place to start. Dan, where do you want to go next with some of these values that we're seeing?
All right. So this one, I think he's becoming more of a value. I don't think the time is quite right to strike for him. But give me a little bit of that Melgo. I want some Melvin Gordon. Reason why, obviously Denver drafted Javonte Williams to take over for Melvin Gordon. And everybody is kind of aware of that. And you're starting to see owners getting close to capitulating on Gordon. They're either going to hold him for, his production, or they're trying to sell him for whatever they can get right now. And I think as we get a little bit closer to the season, they might be getting a little bit less and less, be getting a little bit more desperate. And what I really like about Gordon is if he is traded after June 1st, he only costs $2 million dead cap against the cap for the Broncos, and he saves them almost $7 million against the cap. And so to me, if Javonte Williams is showing out and he's looking good in training camp, I think Melvin Gordon is a prime trade prospect, for some team that, the running back goes down due to injury, or like we were talking about Miami where, perhaps, or even maybe the Jets, where maybe the starting running back isn't even on the roster. I think it's possible that could be Melvin Gordon. So I'm looking for Melvin Gordon. I'd say he's got at least a 50% chance to be changing teams before we play the first game. And I would like a piece of that while he's cheap.
Dan, do you know how many times Theo had to hold in his yawn during that Melgo rant that you just went on?
That's the beauty of Melgo, though. Everybody's tired of him.
Theo looked like me at one of those like Monday morning 8:30, Zoom conference call that your boss thinks it's a great idea on like the Thursday or the Friday before, and you're like sitting there like trying to force your yawns down,
Yep.
Listen, it's just Memorial Day catching up.
There we go.
Thursday back at work after Memorial Day,
Nice.
You can figure that one out.
Nice.
But I think it's a great call by Dan, and I think that it'll be interesting to see, and it's also there's so many layers to that, because you could really ruin someone like a Myles Gaskin's value late in summer. You could ruin a Mike Davis late in the summer. All these guys that were kind of in those dead zone running backs that people are, starting to get behind their guy, and Melgo could easily go to one of these places and just kind of ruin things. He could also create a committee where we don't want to see a committee. Put Melgo in a situation that we think is happening. I think it's such an interesting call. And yeah, it's you can get Melgo for pretty much nothing right now. I think that you float a draft pick at somebody with Melgo, they might just take that. I mean, if you're holding Melgo right now, you're not feeling great about things, and you might end up with a guy who gives you a lot of positive value to start the year if what Dan says it will happen. So it's a nice small risk that could be a nice big reward to get your season started right. So I also think that would be interesting for the Mike Boone truthers, where we could get a Mike Boone as a handcuff to a rookie running back. That might be an interesting time for Boone as well. So I know I have a couple of Javonte teams that I have Mike Boone on, and he's probably a guy I cut. But if Melgo gets moved, absolutely keeping Boone, and he could end up giving some value as well. So I love that call by Dan.
You're thinking like me on that one, Theo. I've been collecting Boone shares. The fact that he just got cheaper, it just makes me collect them even faster.
Yep. Yeah, especially late in those best balls and late in those dinos.
Yep.
He'll be on waiver wires when your waivers open. I'll add this with Melgo. I think that it's a roster construction type of thing. I think all these guys in this range, if you didn't pick up your two studs early, your Akers and your Gibson, or your, whatever, you name your two, Zeke and Gibby, or whatever it is, Jones. Yeah, maybe you bring in guys like Connor and Melgo to fill up your starting lineup for the first half of the season or the first 3 quarters of the season. They're not guys you can move easily in Dynasty for their value. They're more valuable on your bench, in my opinion. The weekly production that they're giving you is worth more than what you can probably move them for. Because Melgo is what right now, like 26, 27, around there?
For running back? Age?
Yeah.
He's 28.
Yeah, 28. So he's kind of past, and he's been around. But look, he's consistent. He's in a good offense that, with the issues at quarterback or the challenges that you think they'll have at quarterback, they might lean on him a bit more. The Javonte gives him a nice value, a nice price. He's just, you gotta understand what you're holding when you grab a guy like Melgo. And there's these guys that they're a bit cheaper in the draft. They'll give you good production maybe in 2021, but you got to know that a year from now, they're not giving you what you're paying right now. Right. And you got to balance that with your roster and how else you go through the draft.
Right. Yeah. This is really a play for, 2021 points.
For sure. So if we're talking running backs, I'm just looking at my list. So guys that I had that I think are going out of value is, we talked about a couple of them. Edmonds and Pollard, I think, are still at a good value right now, going at the RB 29 and RB 30 in Edmonds and Pollard. I have Zach Moss in Buffalo, who's going as the RB 38. To me, I mean, you want your running backs tied to an offense, a good offense, that are going to score a lot of points. And I mean, yeah, we saw this offense switch to pure aerial assault, but somebody's got to take over the running game in that backfield. Singletary had that extra season, and it's, he's kind of shown what he is. But again, I kind of like these running backs that. And look, Moss got hurt last year, so he had a bit of a setback. I like these second-year running backs that you can get for a bit cheaper, especially that's in a situation like this. They didn't bring in any other running backs. They brought Breda at the beginning of the offseason. So I think Zach Moss is a nice buy. He's actually, for me, a value and a sleeper. We talked about Fournette a bit. I do think that Fournette, similar to what a guy like Gordon or Carson offer. But, I mean, we saw what this guy can do, man. If they give him the rock in that offense, what he did in the playoffs, if that continues going into 2021, where he's going right now as the RB, I just had it, RB 37. I don't know if, Dan, you got a RotoViz and you can pull up like how many week or RB1 or RB2 weeks he had. But when he actually started, I'm pretty sure it's a pretty good percentage.
Yeah.
And that might just be my recency bias and thinking about him in the playoffs.
Yeah, Fournette was he was kind of hit and miss during the season, but again, he just came onto the team late. Basically right before the season started. So I think it kind of took him a little bit to get up to speed. He had only 2 RB1 weeks, 2 RB2 weeks, and he had like 3 other weeks that were hovering right around 10 points. So, he was kind of a marginally useful asset last year. But again, if you listen to Arians, he's saying, Fournette's his guy, and it's going to be Fournette and Rojo. And, I think Fournette is probably going to be the better player to own of those two.
Yeah, he's certainly going to get the targets. He was well targeted in the playoffs, and we all are bullish on that offense. So yeah, he's a value there. I like JD's call on Zach Moss. I think that's a guy that we talked about at the beginning of the show, trying to find value this time of year. You're not going to get Zach Moss in August for the cost that you're paying in June. He's going to be a lot more expensive in August. It's kind of like we talk about. I keep referencing the dead zone, but it's kind of like those running backs. Running back 15. It changes every year. A running back, 16, 17 to running back 28, especially in redraft. These guys are all going to be kind of the necessary evils to add to your roster. And Zach Moss will certainly be in one of the best offenses as the starting running back. So, I mean, he is definitely appealing. He avoided a lot of bullets this offseason, so to speak. They didn't add the Javonte Williams. They didn't add the Travis Etienne. The Najee Harris that they were rumored for. They didn't go get an Aaron Jones type. So Zach Moss is the last running back standing. He's certainly the best running back on the offense. We've all seen what Devin Singletary is. I think he's a useful NFL player, but he's not a fantasy relevant guy. And I think Zach Moss is the kind of guy that, if you want him, go get him now in June, whether it's Dynasty or one of these early football guys, because the market will correct itself. And he'll actually probably reach a point in August where I won't want him because he'll get a little too expensive for what he is. I think now is the time to go get him.
Yep.
Just one last RB. I know Dan, you don't want to do positions, but I kind of have them like that on my little whiteboard here. But just because rookie fever is still a little in effect. Elijah Mitchell going RB 56. I feel like, and that might be, Theo, you talked about maybe these ADPs not catching up yet, but that gives you an advantage when you're in the draft room and you scroll down. You might scroll down a little further, to see what's there. And Elijah Mitchell, I think with kind of the vacancy in that offense in the backfield that's happening, I think that he can be a nice value down there in the cheap seats.
Yep. I mean, we know that San Francisco took Sermon and they really seem to like him, but, find me the season where Sermon's had 200 carries. Find me, I can remember when Shanahan was pounding the table for, what was his name, Joe Williams or something like that.
My God, yeah. Yep. That's hilarious. Wow.
To me, Sermon is a draft at your own risk kind of player, and Mitchell is the player I would much rather have at the much cheaper price than Sermon. I mean, I wouldn't want to go into the season without any shares of Sermon, but I certainly won't have a lot, and I will probably have a lot more Mitchell.
Yeah, I'll say that Mitchell and Wayne Gallman, yep. Right now those two guys are super cheap, and people are trying to figure out the Sermon versus Raheem Mostert. Mostert is another guy who might get cut, just based on, the roster layout. I think if they feel comfortable with both rookies and they feel comfortable with Gallman, I think there's an outside shot that Mostert gets cut. But if he's kept, it's kind of one of these backfields where you can just take the cheapest guy, and spend nothing on him, and hopefully get a nice big payoff. I mean, even last year, Jerick McKinnon had a number of useful weeks, and he was, a very, very cheap ad for a lot of the offseason. And you probably got, at least maybe 3 or 4 starts out of him. So, yeah, I like that call. Mitchell was very productive in college, and 6th-round pick. But, again, he's got a chance this year. I mean, that backfield's in flux, and we certainly all like the offense. So, stranger things have happened than a highly productive, athletic 6th-round pick, breaking the field. So that's a good call. But yeah, Gallman's another one I kind of want to keep my eye on as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that. Any of these like backfields where there's questions and there's not really that guy that's taking the bull by the horns, any of these guys you can get super cheap at these prices that we're talking about. I mean, that is value town, big time. And those are the guys you want to add depth. Like, who else are you drafting around Elijah Mitchell that's a receiver that you want necessarily that's going to help you, in the next 3 years even. Like, a lot of those guys end up on your like taxi, in those deep dynasty teams, and you don't necessarily start them if you built your team right and you've got those stud receivers to plug in every week. All right.
Here are the 4 closest receivers in startup value.
Yeah, hit me up.
Marvin Jones, Nelson Aguilar, Christian Kirk, and Cole Beasley.
Yeah, I don't hate those. I
don't hate them either, but I mean, if you're excited by them, I mean, if you don't have 3 or 4 or 5 better receivers than those guys, you probably need to rethink your choices.
Put it this way, Dan. I have maybe one of each of those receivers ownership wise dynasty, but I have like a handful of Elijah Mitchell shares in dynasty. So
exactly, because if any of those guys pop, you're hoping they pop to maybe be a wide receiver 2 for you, or wide receiver 3. Whereas Mitchell, that's a guy you're hoping can pop for multiple wide receiver or multiple running back 1 weeks if he truly gets an opportunity. So.
Did you guys have any quarterbacks before? Because I have a bunch of receivers.
No, I did not have any quarterbacks.
Yeah, quarterback. I don't really have anybody that strikes me as a huge value. Other than, again, we kind of talked about him, Deshaun Watson. I think if you can take the sting of a lot of zeros this season, he's at a very, very nice price.
I think Tannehill going at QB 18, like, if you're looking at ADP, if you're in a draft and he kind of pushes and he's like QB 20, in that range, QB 19, like, I rather have Tannehill over Mayfield, over Zach Wilson, over Tua, over even Stafford until I see what happens in LA. Maybe not Rodgers yet. But I don't know. I just feel that in the right draft, I think I've seen Tannehill drop, and people think that they lost Corey Davis or they don't have as many. But look, let's face it, their defense isn't that great. He's going to be launching the ball. Yeah, he's got AJ Brown and Ferkshire and Josh Reynolds, but maybe Julio was there.
Yeah, he never gets any respect. I mean, the guy was quarterback 8 last year. And now you're getting him at like quarterback 20, and for no reason.
Yeah.
He's not old. He's in his early 30s. He should have a number of years left in Tennessee. I know that Andrew and I had him as one of our triflex quarterbacks, and we felt great about where we got him. He's got rushing upside as well. He kind of is drafted in that range of guys that don't really offer you a whole lot of rushing upside. And he's a very capable rusher. I found the end zone. I think I don't have his stats in front of me, but I believe it was like 6 rushing touchdowns last year. So Tannehill is certainly a value when you get him. You get him in the. He should at the very least be an early QB2. So if you get him in that late QB2 range, I mean, I think that's pretty ridiculous value.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that, and again, I think that rushing gives him a floor, and for a guy who was a wide receiver in college, he's good with the ball in his hands. So, and he's demonstrated that over and over. And we've seen, just one of the things you can take away, if nothing else, from the Julio discussion is if you put that list of teams back up that were in the Julio sweepstakes. This is the same list of teams that are likely to be looking to add at wide receiver at some point during the remainder of the offseason, right? So it might not be Julio, but these are teams that probably feel like they have a hole, and so I think Tannehill is going to gain in that way as well. I think they're probably going to sign somebody decent at wide receiver, maybe not great, but they'll either trade or sign somebody that's pretty decent. and get him a little bit more help.
All right. Before I mention too many of my sleepers for the next part, any tight ends, guys? I came up with one.
Theo, I had one tight end.
Yeah, go ahead.
So my tight end was Gerald Everett, who I thought was an interesting player. Right now, he's getting drafted as tight end number 22, and that puts him behind Blake Jarwin, behind OJ Howard. He was in division with Los Angeles. Never had a monster year. He always had a couple of like really big games, and he always flashed. Higbee was there with him. It was sort of more of a split. He had a career high in receptions last year, quietly. I think he only had like about 37 receptions, but Seattle gave him a $4 million signing bonus. He has $6 million guaranteed. I think he's the sleeper to get into the top 12 tight ends this year, and he costs almost nothing. The guy was a second-round draft pick back in 2017. I mean, he's always kind of had the pedigree and never really popped. And we've seen Russ Wilson have success with so many tight ends. The Jacob Hollisters, the Will Disleys. Anybody can play tight end with Russ Wilson. And
he's the kingmaker at tight end.
Absolutely. And I think that Everett right now is such cheap value in Dynasty and in redraft. For him to go this low in tight end premium format is, I think he should be going several spots higher. I mean, I know I traded the 312 in a rookie draft to get Everett or in one of my FFPC Dynasty leagues, which I thought was great value. And he was also available in a lot of these rookie drafts. I know that each of us probably grabbed him a couple of times. So I would send some feelers out. I think that he's very safe as a tight end too. I think he'll get you tight end 2 value. And I think if the ball bounces his way and he catches a few extra touchdowns, I think he could potentially get into that top 12 this year.
Yeah, totally agree.
Sorry, go ahead, Dan.
Oh, I was just Theo laid out the case perfectly. I mean, Everett is such a strong buy right now. I have found some leagues where his owners are clinging tightly to him because they are subscribing to the same train of thought as Theo and myself. But he's definitely somebody I'm inquiring about in pretty much every league.
Well, he's a guy I think we all really liked and had hope for in LA. Right. McVay called him his Jordan Reed. At one point, I'll never forget that. That stuck in my brain. And I always liked Higbee, Everett, and just Higbee was there. There, the weapons. Oh shit! Hold on. Whoa. Frozen beer is overflowing like a volcano right now in my cup. Not ideal. But I think him and Higbee are 2 of my sleepers right now. Just being on different teams, and he goes to a team that knows how to use the tight end. We've seen in Seattle, whoever they put in there. Russell really leans on him, so I think that's a great call, dude.
It's addition by division.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they're both winners out of this. Higbee should take no more Everett, stealing his targets, and Everett gets away from Higbee. It could be perfect for both.
Right.
No, I like that. The only other tight end I had, Dan, I don't know if you'll agree, is Hunter Henry. I think that maybe he's going a little too. He's going right now as the tight end 18. I mean, we're talking about a guy that was top 5, top 6 for most people last year when he was in LA. And yeah, I know it's a way better situation, but I mean, let's face it. Who are the receivers? We talked about Aguilar. We talked about who was I looking at? McCoby, what's his name again?
Myers.
Wow.
Yeah, Myers.
Jacoby Myers. I mean, Harry's still there. Let's face it. There's, there are a bunch of scrubs catching the ball. So
Jonnu is probably going to be his biggest roadblock.
He will. I don't deny that. But you're looking at a team that has had 2 highlighted tight ends in their offense before, and coach hasn't gone anywhere.
Right.
So if you look at I just think that he might be a value in the sense that if you haven't picked up your tight end yet, or maybe you pick one up later, you pair him up with someone else, and you give yourself like a decent. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, I like his price right now because you can get him cheap for sure. There's a lot of people who owned Henry, and they thought he was going to resign with the Chargers or go somewhere really good, and then all of a sudden he ends up on the Patriots with Jonnu. And I've got a couple hundred Henry shares myself, and I'm holding them just because I've seen what he's going for, and I don't want to sell that.
His value's down, right? And that's kind of why I just again kind of looking at talent and where this guy was looking a year back and a year ahead. And guys, you're listening right now in the comments. Go give us your values right now. Who are you, Val? Where are you seeing the value in your drafts? Name the players. Give what we're talking about different positions here. Give us your best value in the comments. Smash the like. We appreciate that very much. Receiver guys, I got a lot of receivers.
I got to throw out one more tight end.
All right,
Zach Ertz.
Yeah, that's a great one.
And again,
he even in tight end preem, then he's being like kind of just ignored.
Right. And now the thing is he's been a little bit in the news lately. So, I don't know, the sell or the buy window on him might have closed. But it's certainly been open up until the past couple of days when all of a sudden he started getting, the NBC Sports Edge treatment again, where they were talking about possible landing spots for him. But we always knew he wasn't going to be going to Philadelphia. We always knew whoever traded for him was going to have a need at tight end. And so he's somebody I've been trying to quietly pick up shares on for a while.
Yeah, I mean, what a difference a year makes, huh?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's kind of what Hunter, Ertz, that's Dan. We're similar in that approach where you see guys, they drop quickly, and maybe their movement, the fluctuation isn't justified with the actual situation or what's actually happened with the player. And yeah, maybe his time in Philly's done, but that's a good thing for me. Like if I see him go to an offense, that it's a team that wants him. They're bringing him in for a role for some targets. And I mean, we've all seen Ertz. He's not old, man, in tight end years. They're like dog years.
Right.
He's good, man. Send him to the Colts. I'll be happy if he goes to the Colts, to be honest. Okay, receiver. Dan, you go. You have any receivers off the top of your head?
Oh yeah. Give me Tre'Quan Smith. Sorry, can't talk. Tre'Quan Smith.
That's a great one. That could be a sleeper too. I like that one a lot.
He's coming into his third year. He's finally got a quarterback who has an arm that can get him the ball down the field. He was one of the most efficient players per touch last year, and he's just got a lot of things that say that he could end up being a really good value because you can get him so late in drafts right now. I'm not even sure where he's going. I mean, he's
in the nosebleeds. He might even be in the triple digits.
And if you're in a deeper league, you can pair him up with Marquez Callaway too. And between the two of those, one of them is almost sure to pop. So that's a great way to go. Whether you're talking about best balls, whether you're talking about just kind of filling in the back end of your dynasty roster, if you can pair up those two, you got to feel good that one of them is going to emerge somewhat.
Yeah, I mean, Tre'Quan he's one of those guys where when you watch him on the field, like he's a bigger dude. He's 210, 6'2". He just looks like he could be a dominant receiver. And I don't know if it was Breeze or what it was, the fact that Michael Thomas was just hogging all the juice out there in New Orleans, but he looks like, and look, I mean, third round capital, not shabby. He's barely 25. He's not even 25 yet. So especially if Jameson blows, for me, I'm kind of going by that assumption. I've been buying up Michael Thomas. I mean, now I'm slowing down because everybody else has kind of caught on to it, but early in the offseason, I mean, Michael Thomas was such a nice value. And now you just go down the roster, the depth chart, and, who do you see? You see Tre'Quan Smith there, and you even hear it on other shows now. They're talking about all these Saints receivers, but I think Traquan is definitely a great value. Like you said, Dan, he's going super cheap.
Yep, and if you leave it scrolled up here to the top, I mean, this is one of the things I love to do in Dynasty is look for these guys who haven't quite broken out yet, but who still had like all the signs that they should be good in the pros. You look at his size, you look at his weight, like you were talking about. You look at his draft position, his age, he's still not even 25. And you look at his breakout age, 19.2, 86th percentile. That's a huge indicator of wide receivers that end up being good in the pros at some time. It just hasn't happened for him yet. But and then I love player profilers comp for him too, Kenny Britt.
Yeah.
And you think Kenny Britt and you go, oh, that guy was a total disappointment. But I mean, his knees got wrecked. If Britt's knees hadn't got wrecked, Britt was on the road to being something special.
Yeah, and Traquan has 9 touchdowns in 2 years. I mean, you could see him having a real step up this year. I love that call. I've had him in a lot of underdog drafts. I think he's a great guy for best ball, but he could have a role in redraft. He was useful for a few weeks last year. Some of those weeks where Michael Thomas was out. I mean, he was flex worthy for a few weeks, and he certainly has the talent. And I think he'd mesh pretty well with Jameis. We really want Jameis as the Saints starting QB. I mean, I really think that if you're holding Michael Thomas, I mean, but it's looking more and more like a Jameis situation.
Every night it is.
Every night.
Yeah.
I think it's looking more and more like Jameis, and Traquan could be a big winner there.
The one thing though, I will say, I just touch on that whole even if the thing that what really made me go after Michael Thomas aggressively was, even if it's Taysom Hill, if you look at Thomas's season last year, it was just all around disaster. And he was still all right when he was on with it. Like, I just feel like you add to that really crappy floor that we saw last year. And I just feel like worst case scenario, you're still holding a guy that's going to be able to produce in that offense. But let's face it, man, we all want Jameis. Like, you think back to that Tampa Bay offense, that's what put Mike Evans and Godwin on the map, man, was when, Jameis was launching those balls down, and those two guys were in the top 10.
Yep.
I think he was even, because I had him on FFPC rosters, and it was like between him and like a top 3 QB, and I kept, it was like, you're always wrong, because he was always outscoring the top 3 QB, and I believe he was even top 5 a lot of those weeks. So
yeah, he was.
Super flex, maybe Jameis. Actually, he's my sleeper for quarterback was Jameson, but I think he's probably a lot of people's sleeper at this point.
Yep.
All right, Theo.
I'll throw out another wide receiver, kind of in the same light as Traquan, Darnell Mooney, who it's a very weird how Mooney, before Justin Fields got to Chicago. Early in the offseason, when we thought maybe Allen Robinson was going to leave, Mooney was like kind of a hot name in Dynasty. You saw him getting traded for like second-round rookie picks. He's got great athletic ability. He's a speedster. He can get behind the defense. He flashed as a rookie. I mean, I think you can think back to, how many times he was missed by the Bear quarterbacks. There'd always be a highlight of Mooney getting wide open and getting overthrown or underthrown. And now he gets sort of a perfect QB to match with his skill set in Justin Fields, who could be a potentially great deep ball quarterback. And you also have, Robinson re-signing, but there's not a whole lot of, legitimate pass catchers in Chicago. I mean, a lot of people are expecting a big Cole Kmet breakout. But to me, it looks like Mooney could potentially be, the number 2 target, number 3 target in an offense that's ascending. And I don't think his price has really caught up with it. He's wide receiver 56 in FFPC Dynasty startup drafts in May, which was pretty much what he was before Fields landed. So there hasn't really been any correction. And, I'm not sure why, but I'm trying to buy up some shares of Darnell Mooney.
Yeah, Dan, 5th round draft capital. This guy in week 2 gave you 12.6. In week 8, he gave you 17, almost 18 fantasy points. And then 16.5 week 15. And then the last week in week 17, over 20 fantasy points. Again, you think back to that offense last year. Imagine what he does if Justin Field blows in Chicago.
Yeah, and he definitely led Chicago in so close plays. I mean, there were so many times where it was like it just out, a pass just passed his outstretched hands, or broken up at the last second by a defender or whatever. I mean, it was just he was so close to so many more points. And I know those don't always come through, but again, I like the comp. Once again, the player profiler has for him, Paul Richardson, which was another wide receiver that actually looked like he could go pretty well, and then all of a sudden he had injury problems, and that was it.
Yeah,
so,
nonstop.
You gotta stay away from those injury problems.
Yeah, he was a guy I had on a lot of my dynasty rosters, and he just, you'd see a flash, and then he'd be dealing with injuries for the longest time. That it just, almost, yeah.
And a shout out to Matt Hicks. Matt Hicks is also very much on the Mooney train. So a lot of people are behind him, and I think that his price will correct a little bit as the summer moves along.
Yeah, Mooney's forgotten, right? And out there, and people think Robinson, Demont, maybe, and now with the stud quarterback, I mean, he gets forgotten. So he's definitely good value, and even a nice sleeper. All right, I got a bunch of guys, but I think if I look right now, I think my biggest value, if I'm looking when I'm drafting a startup, and it's the same for me in best ball, he's going as the wide receiver 27 right now. So not even as a wide receiver 2 is Kenny G, the number 1 target. Yeah, I don't care who's throwing the ball in New York. I don't care if it's Daniel Jones, if you like Daniel Jones or you don't like Daniel Jones. He's going to be getting the targets. They paid him. They brought him in. And not even going as a top 24 receiver to me is value town. Easily. And especially if you're looking at the way you build your rosters, again, whether it's best ball or dynasty, I'm seeing very good parallels there. You maybe went running back early. Maybe that's how you build your roster. Maybe the tight ends were sitting there in the tight end preems, and you don't have a receiver yet. Well, Kenny G as your wide receiver 1 at his price is not too shabby. And if he's your wide receiver 2 at his price, it's even better. So, again, I know people are a little sour with the landing spot, with who's throwing him the ball. There's a small percentage that, think Daniel Jones can do well out there in New York. They're definitely setting him up to succeed. What do you guys think about Kenny G, where he's currently going, and is he a value, or am I just, just liking that Kenny G flavor, that jazz feel to his name?
I mean, I like where he's going at. I think he's going to be more productive for sure this year than several of the receivers who are going ahead of him. I think we're just starting to see a little bit of ageism creeping in with how he's being perceived in the dynasty community. He's, I think, 27 now?
27, yep.
So, and that's, we're kind of at that stage where, well, he's 27, which is only 1 year away from 28. 28's, the age apex. And so, even though he's not at the age apex yet, he trade value wise, he kind of gets treated that way a little bit. So, people who are drafting startups with one eye on the trade value, they're probably going to shy a little bit away from Kenny Galladay. And people who are more like, I want to, go out and win this year, and maybe next year and the year after, they're not too concerned about that age because they know Galladay's got at least another 2-3 good years left in him, most likely.
So I like Galladay a lot in redraft right now. In Dynasty, I think, he could go a little bit earlier than where he's at. They certainly gave him a lot of money. So I think the Giants are invested in him returning a lot on the value. he's never been that highly targeted a guy. I have his stats in front of me now. His career high in targets is 119. So
yeah, but you could have said that about Diggs.
Diggs had the one very highly targeted year in Minnesota, like that outlier year where I think he was like in the 140s, and then last year with the 160s. But I think that's a great parallel, though, JD. I think that the market kind of hasn't corrected itself for if a team goes and gets a wide receiver for a ton of money. We saw Diggs going a little later. I think that for me, but it's just a little bit with it. Maybe it's the age. Maybe it's the future of Daniel Jones in New York. Where are we going to be in a year? I like Golladay a little bit more in redraft this year. I think great value in redraft, but Dynasty, yeah, like you said, I mean, he could be going wide receiver, 23, 24. He's probably a value right there where you're getting him. But redraft, I think he could return a lot of value as like a fifth round type guy that could be wide receiver 17, wide receiver 16, and you're getting him wide receiver 24, 25. So yeah, he's definitely he'll definitely be an interesting situation. I think that they really want him to be a star there, and I think that's important. I think they've invested a lot, and they've certainly put the weapons around Daniel Jones. Where if Daniel Jones doesn't take a big step forward this year, I think he's done. I think they'll go elsewhere. I think he's got one more year, but
Aaron Rodgers will be there.
There'd be a lot of ecstatic people in New York if that happened. But I think you add Tony, you add Golladay. I mean, they're giving him as many weapons as he can handle. There you go. And they're adding, even Kyle Rudolph. They add a veteran tight end. So
that was a good ad, man.
Yeah, It certainly was. So I think that Galladay's got a shot. But it would be interesting to see if he gets a really, really high target season, which he's never had. Which is kind of funny because you always think of Stafford the gunslinger, but Martin Jones was putting up similar stats to him across from him. And 119 targets, 116 targets. He made up for it in 2019 with 11 touchdowns. And that was also the year where Stafford was hurt and he had a couple of fill-in weeks. You think about like the Dave Blouse and all those kind of guys filling in. But it'll be interesting to see if he gets 135 targets. I mean, that 140 targets, that would be crazy, and he could be one of the values of the entire draft. But
yeah, even if he gets 120 targets, you can be very happy with where he's going right now.
Like, do you guys rather Kenny G or DJ Shark?
Kenny G.
Kenny G for me.
Kenny G or Cooper Kupp?
Kenny G. It's close.
Yeah, I'm probably going Kenny G. That could change by August, but I'm probably Kenny G right now.
Kenny G or Juju?
Kenny G for me.
Yeah, Kenny G.
All right. Those are all guys going in his range on Fantasy Mojo, FFPC, Dynasty Startup.
Here's one for you. Kenny G or Jerry Jeudy?
I saw that. I have so much Judy and Sutton. I had Sutton actually. Yes, Sutton is actually one of my value ADPs. But for me it depends then on my roster construction, and that's why for me Golladay is just he's kind of like the Chris Carson of receivers. Like he's the last receiver one in his offense, and that to me is important when I'm building my rosters. Like where are these guys in that offense? Are they the main target, the second target? So for me, Judy, as much as people think he might be their best receiver in Denver, I do still think that Sutton has a slight edge over him until proven otherwise. Mm-hmm. And maybe that changes with a different quarterback. But from what I've seen, it's kind of 1A, 1B. But I lean Kenny G a bit.
I'll be an ageist on this, and I'll go Judy. If it was a dynasty team, a startup, I'm going to go with the 22-year-old, but certainly for 2021, I'm Golladay all day.
And that's why I say, like, if you already have 3 receivers or 2 receivers, go Judy. You know what I mean? Get yourself some upside.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to ask you about this guy, Theo. Chenault going at receiver 37 right now. I know there's like, when you're trying to pick out the way they're going to use Etienne and who's gonna get her. I see you blowing up. Like, where are you? Because you were a big Chenault guy. Are you still very high on him? Do you like his price?
I'm still on Chenault. I think he's good. He's very good value right there. I'm of the opinion that the Chenault passes DJ Shark this year. In terms of, I think they're so closely aligned right now that I think one will end up looking like a much better value, and I'm willing to bet on Chenault. Chenault just looks explosive with the ball in his hands, and I think that Urban Meyer will get him the ball. I'm not sure what his ceiling is this year, but I think long term, over the next couple of years, I think you'll get value off taking Chenault where he's going, and I'm still optimistic about him this year being the wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville.
Yeah, I've cooled a little bit on Chenault, but I haven't cooled that far to not like him. I think he's pretty fairly valued right now. I just don't know what to make of that Jacksonville offense at this point. That's the hardest thing I'm having trouble coming to grips with. Is how are the touches going to get distributed in that offense? How much of a role is Hyde going to play? How much of a role is Robinson going to play? How much of a role is ETN going to play as a receiver versus as a running back? Does that cut into Chenault's targets? Shark is, and then you got Marvin Jones there. How much does that cut into Shark? I'm having a hard time figuring that offense out. And, so I will take all those guys where they drop a little bit, but I'm not going to be jumping out in front of ADP to take any of them.
Yeah, I mean, you'd like to see Chenault being talked up as kind of a manufactured touch guy, which is kind of what we thought he could be before Travis Etienne went there. But again, I'm probably still betting on Etienne and Chenault, trying to get them where I can because I just believe in their talent. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna just bet on the player, and I don't think Urban Meyer wants to get fired. And I think at the end of the day, you're going to try to get your most talented guys the ball in their hands. You hear this Tim Tebow in the Wildcat formation QB. I mean, some really weird things are happening in Jacksonville right now. And you got to kind of have faith in your guys, and I'll continue betting on Chenault and ETN for that matter.
Yeah, this is a team I'm really looking forward to seeing in training camp and in the preseason. Just to kind of see what comes out of there.
Yeah, like I said last week, a lot of my trading is just based on where I see fantasy line sitting on certain players versus where they were. When everyone wanted Chenault, before Etienne was in the picture, he was impossible to get off of a dynasty owner unless you overpaid. Whereas now, the only thing that's really changed is you have a running back there that you didn't expect, a rookie running back who catches the ball and can do different things, which is kind of what the appeal is with Chenault. Other than that, you're still looking at a second-year receiver with a lot of upside with a ridiculous quarterback coming in. Yeah, as a rookie, but one of the highest, touted rookies quarterbacks. So like you said, guys, DJ Shark's getting a big pump right now out there, which people were sleeping on him about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago. And now he's the preferred because that's, what you're hearing, the narrative out there. But to me, that gives Chenault the edge. For me, that's the value. I'm going to take the cheapest guy out of the two, to be honest. That's kind of to make it simple. Mm-hmm. So I thought he was interesting, like I said, at 37. The last one I thought was maybe a value. I don't know. You guys tell me. Maybe I still have a bit of rookie fever, but Rondell Moore at receiver 40. Like, do you guys think that's right? Is that about right, or do you think that's a good value there?
I think it's potentially a solid value. My worry with Rondell Moore is he going to be one of those guys who's a better best ball player than a guy that you have to decide which weeks to play him on. But you love the talent, what he showed at Purdue. You love the fit with the Cardinals. So I definitely have picked up some Rondale Moore, and I'm looking if he's going a little bit cheaper, I'll definitely grab him.
Yeah, I'm optimistic about him having a good career in Arizona. It was one of the best landing spots you could get because they're going to be in 4 wide a lot, and he'll be able to play in the slot a lot. And I think that he's going to potentially have some massive games, whether he can do it consistently or not. I think that is kind of on the Cardinals. If they want to utilize him as like a second option, then that's great. But I think the price is pretty appropriate. I think that like low end wide receiver 3 is a good price for him right now. So like you said, if he gets in the wide receiver 41, 42, then that might be a value. If he starts creeping up to like wide receiver 34, 35, maybe that might be a little too high. But I'm optimistic. I know the size scares a lot of people, but gosh, he's explosive. And Kingsbury has taken so many shots on these rookie wide receivers. I mean, Andy Isabella, Keem Butler, Keyshawn Johnson. He drafted all these guys, and they all busted. And
I was going to say some of us are still feeling burned off of Isabella.
Yeah,
I don't even know
that might be what's helping keep him cheap right now.
It's a potential redemption where he's like, you know what, screw it. I'm going to keep taking guys. I'm going to keep taking guys, and they get an opportunity at Rondale Moore, and they take him, and that's despite signing AJ Green and having Christian Kirk, and they took him. I think as a guy that really could potentially elevate the offense. So, I'm bullish on him. I think he's explosive with the ball in his hands, and if they scheme him right, the height should not matter at all. So yeah, I'm bullish on Moore, but I think that the price is pretty good. I think there's a lot of sharp people that are on Moore. I know that Rotoviz is very high on him. Player Profiler is high on him. So there's a lot of sharp people on Moore, and I think that the value is pretty correct.
Rondale Moore or Odell Beckham, Theo?
Oof. I know that we'll probably butt heads a little bit on this one, but I'm gonna take Odell because I think this year he could have a comeback. This might look like a really stupid comment a year from now if Odell's out of the league and Rondale Moore has a great rookie year, but I think Odell right now, if he's healthy, Odell could have a nice bounce back season this year. Gosh, that's a really hard one though, JD. Now you got me thinking. I was not prepared for the Odell versus Rondale Moore question tonight, but yeah, I'm kind of and I have a redraft kind of mind right now, but I've liked some of the values of Odell in the 6th round in redraft right now, and I'm kind of picking the brains of people that have him in Dynasty because I do think he has maybe one last hurrah in him this year. So that's a really interesting one. I think Odell's ceiling, if he's healthy and all clicks, he could put together a year this year that I don't think Rondale Moore could have ever in his career. Could that kind of make a little sense? So I would be betting on like one huge year versus, maybe a bunch of, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 years. So I think that's kind of where I'm at. I know which way Dan is going to go on this one though.
Yeah, I think Dan and I think similarly in these cases, but I'll let him answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I know which way you guys are going to go.
Well, I mean, the answer to me is never Odell. So it's very simple. I'm just not a fan of Beckham. I think he's kind of crossed that threshold where the injuries have taken a toll, the ego has taken a toll, and for those reasons, he's just not the player that he used to be. I would rather bet on pretty much anybody that's going in his range over Odell. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But for the past 3 years, I've been right, so I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah, I think again, it's such a cop-out, but I think it really depends on like what you're trying to achieve, what your roster construction is. I do think that just based on the way I build my rosters, and thinking like if these guys each have what I think might be their best 2021, each of them, for me, Odell would be more significant for my dynasty roster and for my competitive teams, and then you could just go the easy route. You're rebuilding, or maybe you're not competing. You obviously go with the Rondell side. But I'm with Theo as much as I'm with Dan, and I'm not a big Beckham fan. I do think he's got one last dance in him, just one last hurrah. And I think that if you do agree with that, right now is a good time to get him at a pretty decent value with a guy with upside like that. He's going receiver 39. I mean, that's just free, at that point. All right. The other guys I have are sleepers. So what I'm thinking is we'll do the sleeper part a bit kind of a rapid fire. If we had, because we've talked about, let's face it, a lot of our sleepers we've talked about in values. So we will give a quick shout out to our friends over at Viridian. I've got my JT28, and Dan's got his Dynasty Warzone DWZ action. We've got the RBs matter. RBs do matter. I've got my GOAT hat. So guys, whether it's DWZ, the GOAT District, we appreciate you guys supporting us. If you can, go to viridianglobal.com/collections/GOAT District. Get yourself some GOAT gear, and then go back to the main page. Get yourself some Warzone action. Whatever your favorite podcast right now, they're probably on Viridian. And like I showed you with the JT shirt, they got some really cool fantasy football shirts. If you have a favorite fantasy player, maybe he won you a league last year, he's probably got a shirt. I know right now I'm getting myself a little Gibson, and this is the last one I received. And I know it's a GOAT shirt, but man, this thing looks sweet. It's super comfortable. Probably my most comfortable kind of long sleeve t-shirt type of thing. And it's a beauty, man. Shout out to Big Chest, Matty Big Chest, who designed that for us. All right, boys, let's do a quick round. Any name we have not mentioned, because let's face it, ADP values are often sleepers. So if we haven't touched on a guy that you have under your sleeper title, Theo, I'll go to you first because I know you're yawning. I don't want you to pass out before we finish or anything. So who are some names that we haven't mentioned yet as sleepers going into 2021?
Well, for me, Mooney was a big sleeper. But I'll throw out one guy for Dynasty that I'm trying to get shares of, and I have a number of shares, is Dynasty Brown, who's going off the board as wide receiver 67, third round draft pick for Washington. And it's kind of like one of those situations where, Curtis Samuel's there, F1, Terry McLaurin is there, but Dynasty Brown's explosive, and they're going to be in what should be a ascending offense with a quarterback that's willing to take deep shots. I think Dynasty Brown could flash a lot as a rookie, and I think he could be a guy that's going to be going a lot higher in startups a year from now than he is now. Rookie draft-wise, he usually was a guy that went in second rounds, but he fell to me a third rounder, which I thought was a little crazy. He's a guy that a lot of people really love the profile coming out of UNC. He was incredibly productive. He was a great deep ball receiver, and he ended up getting a very nice landing spot, and I think it's kind of a landing spot people are overlooking.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, look, again, you just look at what's in Washington. Yeah, that offense is obviously evolving. They've added some nice weapons, so he's just another specimen that they've added, and should fit into that offense nicely. And Fitz is kind of a wide receiver friendly quarterback. You know what I mean? Like he's a vet. He knows what's going on. Even though I just traded him away in Superflex, which we'll talk about if we have time. I like that call. But now Brown, for you, is he a guy that you think helps you in 2021, or is he more like a depth? And if you answered that already, I apologize, Theo.
I think he's more of a guy I'd be stashing, but I think he could end up having some usable weeks. Okay. And if anything happens with Samuel or McLaurin, I think he'd be a huge waiver wire add. I think if anything happened, with Logan Thomas, I think all of the wide receivers could see a little more usage as well. I think that he's going to make some splash plays, and I think it would probably be injury dependent for him to be very useful as a rookie, but certainly a guy I'm stashing. I think his value will rise as we keep going on. I think he'll have a good career.
Yeah, 2,000-year seasons at North Carolina. Dan, sleepers.
All right.
Dude, you're the overhyped sleeper, so these better be fire right now.
Well, I'm going to go with actually a pair of guys because, we were already talking about Aaron Rodgers. And to me, we have another Rodgers there, Amari Rodgers, who's providing perfect cover for Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Allen Lazard. One of these guys is probably going to be the wide receiver 2 in Green Bay. That neither of them plays the role that Amari Rodgers does. So it's not like Rodgers is necessarily going to be taking a lot of targets from either one of these guys. Valdes-Scantling, he's the deep threat. Lazard, he's more of a contested catch guy. But, if you grab the two of them together, they're wide receiver 93 and 96 in Dynasty. I mean, that's about as free as it gets. So, you can take both of them. Probably one of them is going to have a better year than the other one. But, if one of them gets hurt, then the other one is really going to take off. So I just love it having that pair and see what happens.
This is why I don't always tell Dan that I'm starting a best ball, because literally just grabbed Lazard and MVS stack. And the nice thing with those two guys, if you do grab Adams early, you can fall back with either both or one of them. And then Tanyan is not like a super expensive tight end. So you can kind of, the same way some people are, and I've done this too, you stack like Rodgers with Denver guys. You can do that with Packers guys, just because not everybody's assuming that he's going to be in Green Bay right now. So it kind of gives you that opportunity that might not always be there. So I do like that call, Dan, and I love the hashtag always be stacking tip there for best ball. Especially in Dino, right? You and I talked about, sorry, Theo, you and I talked about this last year in Dynasty. That's a little trick where if you're not sure about who's going to take over that, whether it's wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3 position, you grab the two guys that are fighting for it at a cheap value, and then you've got them both on your roster. And then, whichever one you got to let go, you let go, or it gives you an idea where to go there. Sorry, Theo.
Oh, no problem. I was going to throw two more names out. One is Darrington Evans, who's going at running back 70 right now.
Love that.
It's a year ago, people were kind of excited about Darrington Evans. He was going in Football Guys drafts. He was the kind of and one of these upside handcuffs where people thought, if anything happened to Derrick Henry, Evans would be a great play, or maybe he'd be a guy that could have a role. He can catch the ball.
A little bit of an overhyped sleeper then?
Absolutely. A shout out to the overhyped sleeper. But Evans is he's one of these guys that's free, and he could end up being, if Henry misses any time, Evans, I think, steps in. I think he's going to be the handcuff to own in Tennessee. So I'm interested in adding him on some teams, especially considering the fact that he's free. He's free.
Yeah, I love that call. Before you go to your next guy, I love that call. He's a guy I was looking at for this list specifically, because especially you look at Henry. I mean, he's a beast, and I think even Henry's going a little way too early right now in Dynasty for me specifically. He's a beast. He's seen a lot of tear, and look who's behind him. Evans. That's it. There's no one else. I love that call, especially at his price, man. He's like practically free.
Yeah, he's kind of like a discount Tony Pollard in a sense, where even if you're betting on Henry to have a high volume season, there's plenty of opportunities in Tennessee to be a kind of a useful handcuff that maybe gets a little bit of work. They liked him enough to use a high draft pick on him, and he was incredibly productive as a college player. And his stats at Appalachian State are ridiculous if you go and look at them. So, and then my other sleeper, who we've actually talked about in previous Go District episodes, is my guy Kylan Granson, the tight end for the Colts. He's a rookie. There's a lot of hype behind him right now. I think he's got the Trey Burton role and potentially more. Only a fourth rounder, but I think he could make an impact year one. He's one of these guys that you could get with an eye on the future that you might be able to potentially have as your tight end 2 on your roster, your tight end 3 as the season moves along. They've made some big comparisons to him. People in Indianapolis have said the name Dallas Clark. They've said that they're going to line him up like they did Eric Ebron in his massive 2018 season. So I'll continue bringing up Kylan Granson anytime we have these kind of conversations. He's a guy that I definitely want to roster. And again, he costs you nothing. You can always cut him as the season comes along if I'm wrong, but he could be the kind of guy that pays off.
Yeah, I've got 3 tight ends. Dan, anything to add on the Colt? I mean, anytime you talk Colts, my ears perk up. Perk? No, that's not it.
Yeah, nothing really to add on Granson. I think the case was pretty well laid out there. With Darrington Evans, I will point out that they had him practicing out with the wide receivers, and given how shorthanded they are in the receiving department in Tennessee, I think that is it's an interesting tidbit at this point. I wouldn't bet a lot of money on it, but it's interesting to hear that, and it will be interesting to see what happens during the preseason and training camp for Evans as a receiver.
Yeah, because Dion Lewis isn't still there, is he?
No,
he's not.
Yep.
Yeah,
no.
So
yeah, basically, I think do they still have Dante Foreman?
Foreman.
No, they had the other guy. They had another guy there that was in Tampa and went over there.
Yeah, McNichols or some.
That's it.
Yeah, the guy out of Boise State.
Yeah.
Yeah, McNichols is still on the roster, and Brian Hill's there now.
Oh yeah, Brian.
Oh, Hill. Okay, yeah, I saw that.
But Brian Hill's the Jag.
Yeah.
He's not. He's no threat.
Right.
I've held on to McNichols. That's why I'm laughing. I have him on a couple of rosters where I was still holding on from the Tampa Bay days.
Truther.
Yeah, truther. There you go. And we talked about Higbee already. He was a guy he's kind of a sleeper just because, he's going tight end 16. Ferkser in Tennessee. We keep talking about that offense just because there's so many open targets. And I think Ferkser might even be, in best case scenario, the second target hog behind AJ Brown. And then I know, Dan, he's another favorite of yours is Ebron. And I just think with Phil Hellmuth going to Pittsburgh, and the amount of time tight ends take to develop, I just think people get a little too excited about the new guy. And they just go back and see what Ebron did last year in that offense. And I don't think much is going to change this year. If anything, Ben's going to throw even less distance. So Ebron might be more attractive to him on a lot of those options,
Yep.
Real quick, receivers. I had Debo. I think Debo is going he's kind of forgotten. He's going super late. And Josh Reynolds. I know we keep talking about Tennessee, but Josh Reynolds going over there. I mean, if he takes even 80% of the Corey Davis action at his price, I think he can be a good value sleeper or whatever you want to call it. All right, guys. Anything to add before we close this out? We've gone. Oh man, I didn't even realize we're over 2. All right. See, I'm blaming Theo. Anything to add, guys?
I mean, one of the things that just it comes up as a common theme that we've been hitting throughout the show without really talking about it is those uncertain situations where there's a lot of cheap assets that are available in those uncertain situations. Those are the guys you want to load up on because that's where you have the chance to get somebody to really pop. What you want to stay away from is the places where, you have uncertainty and both of the, or all of the people who are involved in that uncertainty are expensive because everybody thinks I've got the right guy. You want to be that in that place where everybody's like, yeah, I don't even want to worry about this. This is too hard to think about. And so you have, like Valdez-Scantling and Lazard going super late, or you have, Darrington Evans and Josh Reynolds and Anthony Firks are going way too late. Those are the kind of things that you want to invest in because there's a chance for a good reward there.
Theo, any tips, any advice, any closing thoughts before we close this way too long?
I think that what Dan said was right. I think that getting into murky situations can be a big payoff, but we want to try to avoid bad offenses where there's murky situations, like going and betting on the Houston Texans running back situation. Your payoff is minimal. The headaches will exceed the payoff the payoffs, and also you don't want to bet on some of these fast rising guys in mediocre offenses as well. Like a guy like Michael Carter right now, you don't want to go and trade for him. If you're going to get Michael Carter, wait and see if one of these other guys wins the running back job, and then try to go get him at the end of the summer. Don't overpay for guys this time of year, because again, like Dan brought up with the Melgo situation, situations can change between now and August. So don't go putting a lot of capital into question marks.
Whoa. Yeah, getting a little too click happy. No, you guys bring two great points. He's Theo Greminger at the OG Fantasy. To my left, with the flow, the overhyped sleeper, no E on the end, my man Dan. These guys, if you're not following these guys on Twitters, you're at a disadvantage, because I'm sure someone in your league, if not everyone, already are. Similar to this show tonight, guys. Like, a lot of people are taking a little dynasty vacation right now. They're focusing on NBA playoffs. Maybe they're not Leaf fans and they're watching hockey playoffs. But you're hanging with us, and that's giving you an edge. And we hope tonight we give you some goodness. If we did, smash the like button. Like I said earlier, give us your buys, your values, your sleepers, especially in the comments below. And stick with us this offseason, man. Where the whole idea here is you want an edge. You want to get... Apologize. See, I'm way too trigger happy. Dan, you're distracting me. But no, man, we're going to bring back some guests as we go into June. We have some serious heavy hitters. Tonight, we wanted to look at values, sleepers. Stick with us this offseason, guys. Again, press the like button, the subscribe button. Check out our supporters, our partners, the FFPC, myffpc.com, Viridian Global for all your GOAT gear, all your Dynasty gear. Especially, guys, right now it's getting hot. Wherever you live, it's getting hot. You're putting away the winter gear. You need some new tees, man, some new hats, some fresh, slick gear that you want to rock. We're being let out back into the wild, so you want to look good. Check out the Viridian Dynasty Depot. Don't forget the Depot, man. Theo is out there wheeling and dealing, building these rosters and flipping him for, like, I'm pretty sure he retired from whatever he was doing. He's already retired. He retired from the WWE, the whole deal, man. So, guys, Dynasty Depot, buy, sell, and trade Dynasty teams from the FFPC. McNamara is the last one. McNamara Dynasty. Go check out the website. The amount of tools, I need another 6 sessions to go through the tools. So go check out the goodness over there, especially the Trade Finder. Such a great tool for Dynasty. And guys, we appreciate you guys tuning in. We appreciate all the goodness. Be safe, be happy, and we'll check you all later.
Goat District, the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text. That trash offer's the best. You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be trading. And I always be trading. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.